there has been significant publicity given to the impact that the limitations and reductions to business relief, and perhaps even more so agricultural property relief, at least in relation to the publicity side of things, will have on those who own those assets, in particular farmers. The biggest issue that has been raised is the liquidity issue that the liability will cause, that is a liability where currently there is not one for most farmers. Let's assume it's available to most farms, where the value of the farm, or the value owned by an individual of the farm, or the agricultural assets to be more precise, exceeds £1 million. Much has been made of the fact that, of course, well, if it's owned by a couple, a husband, wife, then it could be, or a civil partnership, of course, then that means there's a £2 million worth of value that will be covered by agricultural property relief with the full 100% relief available to it. Let's ignore, or let's assume there's no business relief assets that eat into that £1 million each. So that's £2 million for a couple. And then, of course, you'd have heard also that, well, effectively it's £3 million. Why is that? Well, because they each have a nil rate band, and maybe a residence nil rate band as well, which will give them another 500,000 each, which together is £1 million. And then we've got £1 million on residence nil rate band and nil rate band. We've got £1 million each on agricultural property relief, and that makes the £3 million. However, what about farms where the value is more than that? Or what about businesses where the value is more than that? How do you pay the tax? How do you deal with the liquidity issue without selling some of the assets, which can have a detrimental effect on the viability of the business, the viability of the farm itself? Well, that could be difficult. Of course, there is the installment option. You can pay tax in installments on qualifying assets over 10 years. I'll do a separate video on reminding us of the rules for installments of tax, but you can do that. But there's also another pretty simple solution that we should all be very, very, very well aware of, and that is the role that life insurance in trust could have. So an appropriate life insurance policy held in trust to provide the liquidity in the right hands and at the right time, completely free of inheritance tax, to meet the liability and remove the liquidity issue, may well be a solution that is, it certainly works from a tax standpoint and a legal standpoint. And all that remains to find out and reassure yourself on, of course, is the commercial aspects, that the premiums are worth the value that you get at the end. Of course, that will be largely dependent on health and the available rates at the time. So my point here is, let's not forget the very real role that life insurance in trust can have in alleviating those liquidity problems for those farm owners and those business owners whose family may well encounter those same problems. So let's remember the real role of protection in trust.